Well, this is the first of two videos. This is a video of how this little seat pressure release reminder works. And my apologies, I have my solar fans running in the background, so you might have a little bit of more noise than I would like to hear here, but it's cold outside. Um, so what this is a device that someone can sit in a chair, on the seat of a chair, and it'll measure how much weight. It does not give you pounds. I've not calibrated it. It just gives you a number. And if a person has not released that number by taking the weight off the pressure sensor, it will give them auditory warnings. If a person does do a pressure release, it also gives them positive auditory congratulations, you've done something good. So it really kind of monitors how a person's is able to use this to perform a pressure release. And again, someone you should not use this if a person cannot perform a pressure release. It's got to be able to, you know, be successful. I mean, it's hard to prevent a pressure release, and really the easiest thing in the world is to get a pressure sore. You just don't do nothing. You just sit. So yeah, it does take a little bit of work to prevent one, but this will help you inform either the caregiver, or the best would be the person, and then they can do a pressure release either by moving or moving a chair around, and it will monitor and give you positive feedback when it detects a pressure release, as well as basically giving you a warning if you've not done one after the 15-minute time period. So on my contact information here, if you do have some questions or concerns about this thing, I put these 6 sensors, and there's an up label there too. That corresponds to the 6 sensors you'll see in the screen in a few minutes. And you can move it around the seat. It's actually made of pretty thick pieces of vinyl that should last a long time. Although I think this is the weak link because I've actually had to solder some wires together, sandwich them between the vinyl. The whole thing has 5 volts maximum anyway. It's not too much of a voltage risk here too. And it is kind of discolored in the side because I melded the edges together using a using a hot iron, trying to make sure this is waterproof. Now it does have a sub D9, it's called connector, so if you had a hard time getting this whole pad on between the chair or someplace, you can disconnect it, but be careful. These little nuts and bolts in here can be lost relatively easily. So you want to keep this together all the time. I also made this connectable like this, so if I need to replace the seat strip, the seat pad here, I can do that without having to take the whole thing apart. So again, you put this in the chair wherever the pressure is would be monitored. The bony prominences or whatever, wherever you need it, it should stay right there. I try to make it as thin as possible. I didn't want to have actually it being a pressure, any points to generate extra pressure. So this is an up close of it here too. These are these variable resistance pressure sensors, and what you're seeing here is this is clear double sticky tape holding it all together. I wanted the sensors to be the top, the heaviest, the thickest part, and everything else to be below that level, and that's why I mounted these things on this double sticky tape. There is some redundancy built in. You can lose 5 of these and it's still going to report on one because the way they're wired together and because of how it's been designed. But again, I think the pad itself will be the weak link here too. Of course, there's up, and that's just to let you know, corresponding to the sensor. When you first turn the sensor on, you're going to hear Frank Sinatra playing "I Got You Under My Skin," "I Got You in the Heart of Me." I'm not going to broadcast it here because it always generates a warning on YouTube saying copyright. But may the force be low. That's what we're after here too. And my contact information is there if you need me, and for some of the questions here too. Now, after that initial screen is over with, you're going to get this screen. It says waiting because it's waiting. It will not even start until it senses weight. The minute you put weight on it, the whole thing comes to life, starts to count down. You'll see the numbers over here change. This is a 0, and if one of these numbers, if you're putting weight on the whole pad and one of these numbers continue to say 0, that means we've had a breakdown. One of the sensors is broken. Sometimes when you solder wires together and flex them, they do break. The delta up here in the top, I got green means up and red means down. What delta is? Delta means stands for difference. And let me show you the next screen. I might help just talk about this a little bit better. Okay, oops. Now, I put a weight on the sensor. It measures 42. This is not pounds. It's just an arbitrary number. And the delta, right, how I have it figured is 10 points less. So the start down here is 42. The delta is 32. So it means it's measuring 42 something. And if you don't change that less than 32, it's going to count down and give you an auditory bad to the bone alarm saying time for a pressure release. There's several different negative alarms it will do. I did one of the same alarm over and over again, so it'll change up a little bit too. The 42, that's what you're seeing up here in the sensor. If you put on more weight, it will change and become that greater number. That will always be the top number. There is this 3 right here. This is the counting. It's not a true clock. It takes the counting off of the CPU clock. So you might gain or lose a few minutes of a couple seconds a day. It's no big deal, but it's perfect for this application. Makes it easy. This is what it counts up to. We're counting at 300, relatively 15 minutes. If a person does not do a pressure release within this, when it gets to 300, it generates a negative feedback, bad to the bone. If you still don't do a pressure release, then it doesn't start all over again. It starts in 5 minutes. You'll get another negative, and then 5 minutes again, another negative, until a pressure release is done. If a pressure release is ever done, in the count up at any time, it will give you a positive feedback. It'll be just a little airline ding, or I got Mr. Burns from The Simpsons saying excellent, and a couple of things on here too. Those can be changed, but you'd have to bring it. I'd have to get it back here to change those files. The delta is adjustable. I was starting to say that. The green, you can raise it up. You can make it a little bit more difficult for a person, or make it easier for a person to do a pressure release. That's the delta numbers. And those are the switches on the side. This is, I believe, a video here. Shows you the counting of it. You'll count up like a heartbeat, a couple seconds here too, and if it ever reaches that 300, well, that's what's going to generate it. So these are the buttons on the side I was talking about. The black does nothing. This is just for future design work. So if you press the green button, it's going to go, the delta increase, and if you press the red, the delta is going to go down, making it easier. You'll see that on the screen as well. On-off button, that's on the front. Just turn it off when it's not in use, of course, to save the battery. I designed this for a dual power supply. It just takes a 9-volt battery. You can slide it right in here. That's nothing to take apart. Make it really easy. If you find you're not needing a battery, and a battery should last, I'm guessing 12 hours or so of continuous use. I'll supply you a separate little wall wart that you can plug it in. And again, a 9-volt system I got here. The whole pad itself runs on 5 volts, but 9 volts is fed to the Arduino computer. This is an earlier picture where I haven't got the whole thing mounted together as well, but it should last a long time. What you don't see here is some of this rope in the top. That's just designed so you can put over the cane of a wheelchair, or somehow just loop it on something. Should not be too much out of the way. The sensor pad itself is not real long. I figured if I make it too long, that's trouble, because sometimes you get it caught on something. So hopefully it's long enough, especially if you slip it under the back of the chair. So anyway, I hope this works. Let me know what you think and how I can make it better. I will follow this up with another video on how this was done. So if anybody wants to replicate this, they can. I can supply the artwork for the printed circuit board as well as the code and everything. So anyway, hope this helps.